When you think of Europe's linguistic diversity, languages like French, German, Spanish, and Italian likely come to mind. But nestled in the coastal regions of the Netherlands and parts of Germany lies a language that, despite its obscurity, holds a unique place in European history: the Frisian language. Often overlooked and overshadowed by its more dominant neighbors, the Frisian language is not just a language, but a cultural treasure. It is the closest living language to English, sharing roots that go back over a millennium. Yet, despite its rich heritage and its unique connection to the English language, the Frisian language remains largely unknown to the wider world. In this video, we'll explore the fascinating history of the Frisian language, its decline, and its revival. We'll look at the number of speakers, the regions where it is spoken, and the efforts being made to keep the Frisian language alive. We'll also examine the Frisian language's cultural significance, its linguistic connection to English, and the role that technology plays in its ongoing preservation. By the end, you'll have a comprehensive understanding of why the Frisian language is Europe's best-kept secret, and why it's worth preserving for future generations. A journey through time. To understand the Frisian language, we must first take a journey back in time. The Frisian language has roots that reach deep into the early Middle Ages. The Frisians, a people who lived along the North Sea coast, spoke a language that was part of the West Germanic language family. This family includes languages like English, Dutch, and German. The Frisian language, in particular, was closely related to Old English. This connection is not just a modern observation, but historical fact. In the early Middle Ages, these languages and the Anglo-Saxons were closely connected through trade, migration, and cultural exchange. During this period, this was spoken across a large area, stretching from what is now the Netherlands to parts of Germany and even Denmark. The language was not just spoken but also written. The Frisian language was used in legal and official documents, and the people of the Frisian language enjoyed a high degree of independence, known as Frisian freedom. This period, roughly spanning from the 11th to the 15th centuries, was a time when Frisian language and culture flourished. Frisian freedom allowed Frisians to govern themselves without a central authority, and their language was a key part of their identity. Historically, the Frisian language was spoken by 200,000 to 300,000 people in the medieval period. Today, around 450,000 people, primarily in Friesland, Netherlands, speak the Frisian language. Despite being a minority, the Frisian language remains the Netherlands' second official language. Frisian is the closest living language to English and comprises three main dialects: West Frisian, North Frisian, and Saterland Frisian. Recognized as an official language in 1956, the Frisian language has a rich literary tradition and continues to play a vital role in the cultural identity of its speakers. The decline, a language at risk. The decline of the Frisian language became even more pronounced in the 19th and 20th centuries. Several factors contributed to this decline. First, the Industrial Revolution brought about significant social and economic changes. The rapid urbanization of the Netherlands and Germany, coupled with the spread of Dutch and German as the languages of education, government, and commerce, led to a sharp decline in the number of these language speakers. As people moved to cities in search of work, they often left behind their rural, language-speaking communities. By the early 20th century, the Frisian language was at risk of becoming a marginalized household language, spoken only in rural areas and by older generations. The number of speakers had dwindled significantly, and many feared that the Frisian language would disappear entirely within a few generations. At its lowest point, the Frisian language was spoken by fewer than 50,000 people as a first language, a sharp decline from its earlier prominence. The revolution, Frisian language fights back. However, the story of the Frisian language is not just one of decline. It is also a story of resilience and revival. Despite the challenges, the people of language did not let their language fade away without a fight. In the mid-20th century, a cultural and linguistic revival began to take shape. This revival was driven by a strong sense of Frisian identity and pride in their heritage. The movement of the Frisians, which had roots in the late 19th century, gained momentum as more and more people began to see the value in preserving their language and culture. One of the key figures in this revival was Gisbert Japix, a 17th century language poet who is often credited with laying the foundations for modern language literature. Japix wrote in Frisian at a time when Dutch influence was strong, and his work helped keep the language alive during a period of decline. His poetry, written in the West Frisian language, is still celebrated today and is a source of inspiration for those working to preserve the Frisian language. The revival movement also gained support from the Dutch government, which recognized Frisian as an official language in Friesland, a province in the northern part of the Netherlands. This recognition was a significant victory for the language movement, as it meant that Frisian could be used in official documents, education, and media. Schools in Friesland began to teach Frisian alongside Dutch, ensuring that young people learned the language and the culture that came with it. Today, the Frisian language is spoken by around 450,000 people, with the majority of speakers in the Netherlands and a smaller number in Germany. This is more than the Icelandic or Luxembourgish language. While this is a far cry from its heyday, the survival of the Frisian language is a testament to the resilience of the Frisian language's people. Thanks to the efforts of educators, activists, and the Frisian language community, the language has been preserved and continues to be spoken by a new generation. Frisian language and English, a close connection. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Frisian language is its close connection to English. The Frisian language is often called the closest living language to English.
Old Frisian and Old English were very close to each other.
And this is not just a linguistic curiosity, it is a reflection of the deep historical ties between the two languages. Both languages and English are part of the West Germanic language family, and their similarities can be traced back to their shared origins in the early Germanic languages. During the early Middle Ages, these languages and the Anglo-Saxons were closely connected through trade, migration, and cultural exchange. This connection is evident in the vocabulary and grammar of both languages. For example, the Frisian word for door is door, which sounds much like the English door. Similarly, the Frisian word for green is green, which is remarkably similar to the English green. These shared roots are not just limited to vocabulary, they extend to grammar and pronunciation as well. The close relationship between Frisian and English makes Frisian a fascinating study for anyone interested in the history of the English language. Linguists often study the Frisian language to gain insights into the early stages of English and to better understand the changes that have taken place in both languages over the centuries. For English speakers, learning the Frisian language can also be an intriguing experience, as many of these words and phrases will sound familiar, even if the exact meaning is different. Cultural richness. More than just a language. The Frisian language is more than just a language. It is a key part of the Frisian language identity. The language is central to the region's literature, music, and traditions. Frisian language culture has a long and rich history, and the language plays a crucial role in preserving and transmitting that culture to future generations. One of the most important figures in Frisian language culture is the poet Gisbert Japix, who, as mentioned earlier, wrote in Frisian language during the 17th century. Japix's work is still celebrated today and is considered a cornerstone of Frisian language literature. His poetry not only helped keep this alive during a time of decline, but also laid the foundation for future generations of Frisian language writers and poets. Frisian language's literature has continued to thrive, with a rich tradition of poetry, prose, and drama that reflects the unique experiences and perspectives of Frisian language's people. The language has also found a place in music, with many Frisian language musicians and bands writing and performing songs in the Frisian language. Today, Frisian language culture is celebrated through various events and festivals. One of the most notable is the Frisk Festival, which brings together people from across Friesland and beyond to celebrate their shared history and culture. The festival features music, literature, art, and performances, all in Frisian, and serves as a reminder of the language's enduring significance. Outro. Why it matters. As we look to the future, the language faces both challenges and opportunities. Continued support from the Frisian language community and the broader public will be crucial in keeping the language alive. The use of the Frisian language in technology, education, and media ensures that it remains relevant and accessible to future generations. The Frisian is indeed Europe's best-kept secret, a language that carries with it a deep sense of history and cultural pride. By learning about and supporting the Frisian language, we can help preserve an important part of Europe's linguistic diversity. The story of Frisian language reminds us that language is not just a means of communication, it's a key part of who we are. Let's celebrate and protect this unique language, ensuring it continues to be spoken for generations to come.